This is the patch 10.2.5 Balanced Druid Beginner Guide for Raiding and Mythic Plus, and I promise you there is going to be absolutely no information overload. Whether you are returning to WoW, you're a new player, or you just want to try out a different spec, I have got you covered. Balanced Druid is a fantastic spec that revolves around the sun and the moon, and I think it's especially good for beginners as a ranged DPS or to WoW in general. So we're going to look at what stats you're going to want on your gear as a priority. First up being intellect, and that is going to come with eye level upgrades. So to put it simply, eye level is best over everything. But if you do actually find yourself with two items for the same gear slot, and you don't know which to go for, this is the priority you should follow. Mastery is exceptionally useful as a balanced druid, and we want to use pretty much as much of this as possible when we can. Of course, we do want to get other stats as well, and this is the order you should follow. So intellect, mastery, haste, crit, and last off would be versatility. Regarding the talent trees, this one on the left is the Raid single target talent tree, and the one on the right is the Mythic Plus one. I will put import strings down below for both of these, but what I will say is don't worry too much about every single talent for now. I would say that you should get used to the rotation and the spec and the core abilities that we have at our disposal first, and then look through these after, as to not overwhelm yourself. And without further ado, let's actually start looking at some of these abilities. So first off, I want to show you some of the cooldowns that we have in our toolkit in patch 10.2.5 as a balanced druid. Starting from the top here, these are some of our defensive cooldowns, and the first one on the left is Bark Skin. This makes our skin tough as bark to reduce our damage taken and also increase our healing received. The second up being Frenzied Regeneration. On the right, this is a healing over time spell, and it's only usable in our bear form, because of course as a druid we can transform into a bear, which is also going to actually in itself be a great way at reducing damage taken due to the increased armor, etc. And lastly is my favourite, Renewal. This is really simply going to heal you for 30% of your health, and is a fantastic on-the-spot cooldown that we can use to get ourselves out of a bit of trouble. On the bottom then, we've got some offensive cooldowns that we're going to be using, and the first one is Fury of Elune. This is actually a damage over time that is going to follow your target, and it will do a lesser amount of damage to other mobs in the vicinity of that target. We're not going to be taking this in every build, however, but it's good to be aware of it. And lastly, which I have just called Super Boomkin, is our Incarnation Fury of Elune. This is going to grant us both of our celestial alignments and any bonuses that come with them. More on that when we go through the rotation. And it's going to give us some crit chance. This is our most phenomenal cooldown and is the piece de resistance of our toolkit. Now let's look at some of the utilities we have. So, like I said, these are utility spells and are really even more useful, I would say, in Mythic Plus. Depending on the fight, they can be useful in Raid as well, but we're majority of the time going to be using these in dungeons due to the fantastic toolkit nature of these spells. So first off is Ursol's Vortex, and this is probably one of my favourites on this slide. Basically, it's a vortex of wind that when you place it in the world, any mobs are going to be slowed within it. And whenever they then try and escape from the vortex, they're actually going to get pulled back in, and it's a fantastic way at slowing mobs down. Then we have Innovate. Generally, this is used on healers, and if you're raiding, your raid leader may call out when they want this used and who they want it used on. And this is, like I said, usually used on healers because it's actually going to make everything they cast free of mana, which is amazing, and they're going to love you. Tiger Dash is a speed boost that we're going to be using. It's really, really useful, and I absolutely love it. Very simple. Going down, Stampeding Roar is the party-wide version, and we do actually get to use both of these. Typhoon is going to blow somebody away, and then Entangling Roots is going to root the target in place. Pretty straightforward on those two. And now let's get into the juicy bit, the actual rotation, and how it's all going to come together. So Here we are at the target dummies, and before we get into the rotations, I just want to say, if you do actually need any extra help after watching this video, please do join my Discord. Unlike a lot of other communities, no hate towards those, but unlike other communities, I actually put in the extra time to go through these things with you. I greet every single person personally who joins Discord, will help you with your UI, add-on setup, rotation, anything at all. And we also run something called Mythic Monday on Mondays, where we run Mythic Plus dungeons to help new players learn new roles or specs, etc., in an environment where they feel like they're not up against the clock and can go at a much more slower pace. So first off, we're going to look at the single target rotation. And I just want to say about my UI before we do that. You will notice in the middle of my screen, I have this weak aura here. If you don't know what weak aura is, it's an add-on that makes cool things like this easy. So this weak aura, I will put an import string down below in the description. Again, if you need help, just join my Discord and let me know and I'll help you set it up. It's very simple. And this is actually tracking a lot of our abilities and resources. So I'm going to be taking a look at that when I talk about our resources. So as a balanced druid, we do use mana, but because we're not a healer, we don't really care, and you can basically ignore your mana. But what we are going to look at is, you can see here on the weak aura, there's 2 light coloured bars and 2 orange bars, and then we have a numbered bar below this. So you might be wondering, what the hell are they? So with balanced druid, we actually are going to be going into an eclipse, and this is going to be either a lunar or a solar eclipse, okay? So as you can see on that weak aura then, the 2 on the left is your lunar eclipse, 2 on the right is your solar eclipse. The bar below that, which is currently at 54, is our astral power, and this is our resource dump kind of resource, and more on that in a minute. So then we're going to look now at our core abilities and how they work. One thing to note is our mastery here. Your nature spells deal 17.6, and it's going to depend on how much mastery you have as to what percentage you see. It's going to do increased damage and an additional damage percentage to targets affected by sunfire, and your arcane spells are going to do additional damage to targets affected by your moonfire. So this is really, really important that we keep these 2 damage over time spells up at 100% of the time on all targets. These are here on my action bars at the bottom on number 2 and 3. Moonfire is a damage over time spell. It's arcane damage. Sunfire is the sun version. And you can see here I push this, and it's also going to do it to your primary target and all enemies within 11 yards. So you could put Sunfire and Moonfire here, and you can notice it's going on to both targets. You can tab target around and make sure it's on all of your nearby targets, or if you're on a boss, just the boss. We're going to want to make sure we keep these damage over time spells up all the time. It's very important from our mastery. The next 2 spells we're going to look at is actually the spells that are going to get us into those lunar or solar eclipses. And that is at number 1 on my action bar, Wrath, and number 5 on my action bar, Starfire. So Wrath is, as you can kind of tell, our solar spell, and Starfire is our lunar spell. You can tell because one looks like the sun and one looks like it's coming from the moon. Ta-da! And the funny thing is here, we're going to do the opposites of what we want to get into. That sounds confusing, I'll explain. Basically, if we want to go into a solar eclipse, which is our single target priority, okay? Solar eclipse is our single target priority. We're going to cast Starfire twice, which is our moon spell. So we're going to cast Starfire, and when you do that once or twice, when you do it once, you can see there that on the lunar side of things, it's actually gone down to 1 on my weak aura. When I press it again, you will then see on the weak aura a sun icon has appeared and is counting down. That is how many seconds I am in the solar eclipse for. If you're saying, well, I don't have that weak aura, it's actually this buff here as well. It's on your buffs. All this weak aura is doing is pulling it into your buffs. So again, 2 lunar spells, Starfire and Starfire, is going to put me into a solar eclipse, and that is for single target. The opposite then is going to be for going into AoE, which is Wrath. So we're going to cast 2 Wraths to go, which is our solar spell, to go into a lunar eclipse. I'm going to cast Wrath once and twice, and we are now in a lunar eclipse. Now this actually then does the opposite effect again. And by that, I mean, we've cast Wrath twice, our single target spell, to put us into a lunar eclipse, which is AoE. So that's then going to empower our Starfire. If you're like, what the hell? Let me explain it again in a more simple and direct term. Let's say we want to do single target damage to a boss. So we're going to cast 2 Starfires, our AoE spell. Yes, really. We're going to cast 2 Starfires. Oh, sorry, I pressed number 4 and pressed the wrong button. If we cast 2 Starfires, we're going to go into our single target solar eclipse, and it's going to empower, as you can see here, our Wrath. And then we cast Wrath, our single target spell. And we can spam that because it is empowered by our solar eclipse. Once that eclipse ends, say we want to then go into a AoE, we're going to cast 2 more Wraths, sending us into a lunar eclipse. You can see here the countdown on the weak aura, and that's going to empower our Starfire. As you can see, it has the thingy around it on my action bar, and for these remaining 5 seconds, our Starfire is empowered. So Wrath is your single target spell, and Starfire is your AoE spell. But you want to empower them. So you do that by using the opposite spell. So 2 Starfires equals a solar eclipse, which empowers our Wrath for single target. 2 Wraths are going to put us into lunar eclipse, which is going to empower our Starfire, our AoE spell. I really hope I've done that one justice. It is quite funny how it's like, evens and opposites into how that works. But that's the core of being in Eclipse. And we're going to want to be in Eclipse all the time. Remember that big cooldown I spoke about before, which is Incarnation Chosen of Elune? This, when we click it, is going to put us into both eclipses for 30 seconds. So it's like, oh, I don't even have to worry. I'm just straight in there. Fantastic. When we use a lot of our spells and also from some of our talents, we are actually going to notice that our astral power is going to go up. And you can see it is now at 100. This is going to go up really naturally over time as you're just doing your rotation. We don't want to overcap our astral power. And the way we're going to spend it is with Star Surge. And that's number 4 on my action bar. So we've capped it out at 100, which you don't want to do. Oops! We actually want to use it when it gets to, I would say, about 70. And when we use this, you can see it uses quite a lot. It's quite expensive. And we are actually going to get this buff here on the weak aura here. You can see I've got 2 stacks of it. This is going to stack up to 3, and this is a talent. This is this talent here, Star-Lord. Star Surge and Star Fall grant you 4% haste for 15 seconds, and it stacks up to 3 times. Gaining a stack does not refresh the duration, and that's why we want to make sure we're using as many Star Surges as we can when we use it, because it doesn't refresh that duration when we get that buff. So let's just recap where we are so far. We're going to want to use Moonfire and Sunfire constantly on all targets. We're going to keep that up on all targets at all time. Remember, we're looking at single target rotation here. So we're going to want to cast 2 Starfires, number 5, to go into a solar eclipse, and then we can spam our Wrath spell, which is our single target kind of spam spell, and we're going to want to dump our astral power on our Star Surge to get that Star-Lord buff. And you can see here our dots have fallen off, so we're going to place those back on. Now, there's one more thing I want to discuss with you, and that is our new moon. And this, again, can get a tad complex. You will see here on the, again, our weak aura. Are you seeing how useful it is now? We have 280 primordial arcanic pulsar, right? So it looks like our Star Surge spell, but that's actually not what this is. This is also from a talent here, primordial arcanic pulsar. Every 600 astral power spent grants your celestial alignment for 12 seconds. What do we mean by that? Well, if I spend some more and get it up to 560, you will notice then, so again, every 600, if we spend some more, you can see, boom, I've actually gone into my both of my solar and lunar eclipses, and that's what it means. So do watch out for that, because you will actually be extending your eclipses or going into them every now and then from that mechanic as well. So now, again, onto the new moon. This is another talent down here. And you can see here, new moon deals astral power to the target and empowers the new moon to become half moon. When you then use your half moon, it will then turn it into a full moon. Well, that's right, baby. We're turning to the dark side. You want to use your new moon as to not cap charges, because you can see down here on my action bar, V is where I've keybound it, you get free charges of this. So when we use our new moon, again, you don't want to cap it. So that then goes to a half moon. It's also going to generate astral power, remember. So you're going to want to make sure you're also using it so that you don't cap out on your astral power, as we discussed before. When you then use your half moon, you can see it's then going to go to a full moon, it's going to generate even more astral power, and it's going to deal even more damage. You can see the new moon is going to deal 99,000 damage to the target and nearby enemies, and resets full moon to become a new moon. Deals reduced damage to secondary targets and generates 50 astral power. We do want to save our full moon for when we're in our incarnation chosen of a loon, okay? And apart from that, we're going to want to make sure we're not capping on it like I am now. And that is pretty much the single target rotation for a balanced druid. Let's go over it again and see how it all comes together. First off, we're going to use our Moonfire and Sunfire and keeping these up at all times. We're going to want to go into a solar eclipse. So we're going to use 2 Starfires, 1 and 2, to go into that solar eclipse, and then we can spam Wrath as our general spender. But let's not overcap on astral power, and let's spend it with our Star Surge to get those Star-Lord buffs here. We're also going to want to use our full half and new moons to make sure we're not capping on the free stacks of those, and also using our full moon when we are in incarnation chosen of a loon cooldown. And that is pretty much it. Let's now look at the multi-target rotation. And I am going to be swapping over to the Mythic Plus talent tree that I showed you earlier for this one. So a few things about the talent tree before we go over the multi-target part of the rotation. Now, if you're thinking, oh good lord, it's about to get twice as complex, it's really not. This is not many changes we're making. So the main thing up here is that we're taking Starfall, and this is going to replace our Star Surge as our Astral Power spender in AoE. We're going to be doing our Solar Eclipse if it's 2 targets still, so single target. 3 targets and above, that is when we're going to start on to this rotation. And there is one slight change that you could make to make this simpler. I'm going to go through the simpler and more complex versions. That is down here with our new moon that we've previously discussed. If you want to make it a bit simpler, you could take Fury of Elune instead, which is the cooldown I previously spoke about on my PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so we can go for this. The reason I'm saying it's going to get more complex is because of our Radiant Moonlight talent, and I'll go through that in a second. So basically, same as usual, dot up the targets first and keep these dots up. We're going to use 2 Wraths, immediately go into a lunar eclipse, or we're then going to use our incarnation chosen of life. Always do your dots first on all your targets before using that cooldown if you are going to use it. We're then going to use our Starfall, and one thing I want to note here is that with Starfall, don't just press it once. We want to actually exude our astral power to 0 with our Starfall. And you'll notice by the tooltip on the screen, multiple uses of this ability may overlap. In other words, you can use it multiple times on the same people or beasts or whatever the hell you're fighting. And it's going to extend the duration of active Moonfire and Sunfires on those targets by 4 seconds. And then lastly, let's just take another look at our new moons, because there is going to be a change to that if you are following the talent tree I've provided. So you'll see here we've got the Radiant Moonlight talent. New moon, half moon and full moon, so many moons, deal 25% increased damage. Full moon becomes full moon becomes full moon once more before resetting to new moon. And Fury of Elune, not Fury of Moon, deals 50% increased damage and its cooldown is reduced by 15 seconds. So that's your Fury of Elune talent up here that I'm saying you could take if you want to go for something a bit more simpler without a billion moons. So I'm going to explain this in a bit more simple manner, because even me trying to say this was hilarious. Basically, what it's saying is we obviously start at new moon, right? So we use our new moon, that goes to half moon. We use our half moon, it goes to full moon. And usually our full moon then goes again to a new moon. But when you have this talent, your new moon actually stays at new moon for one more time. You've got a double new moon. And then we can use new moon again, and then it's going to go to new moon. Sorry, full moon again to new moon. So it's actually going to go new moon, half moon, full moon, new moon, half moon, full moon, etc., etc. I hope that makes sense and I haven't just hypnotized you off to the moon with what I've just tried to explain there. It is quite simple if you just like read it through a few times without getting hypnotized. When to use your full moons is going to be inside your incarnation chosen of a loon, if possible. Remember, you have actually got 2 of them now. Or the other way would to be when you get your pulsar from your astral power here. You can use it when you go into your eclipse from that as well, because that puts you into your incarn there. Or you can do it when you go into your pulsar proc from when you cap out on this talent here, which is, again, the Primordial Arcanic Pulsar. Every 600 astral power spent grants Celestial Alignment for 12 seconds. So you can go into it, use your new moons when you're in that, or when you're in your chosen of a loon. What I will say, though, is don't hold back on using your moons for this. If you're going to cap on moons, use those moons, okay? We do not want to cap on the moons. These are the perfect times to use them, though, when we can, if we're in a full moon. And then outside of that, we're just going to spam our Starfall. So I'm just going to recap on the rotation there for multi-target, in case I've just blown all of your minds of all these moons. Dot up your targets. Like usual, let's go into a lunar eclipse with 2 Wraths, or by using our incarnation chosen of a loon. We're going to use our new moon to make sure that we are not capping on moons, but also be aware of your astral power, because your moons are going to generate some. And then our spender for AoE is going to be our Starfall, which does stack. And that is pretty much it. If you're thinking, well, what about our set pieces for this tier? The reason I haven't gone over them is because it doesn't really change much to our rotation, but I'm just going to mention them now really quickly to give you guys peace of mind. You can see here on the set piece, set 2, when eclipse ends, which is your solar or lunar eclipse, or when you enter combat, you enter a dream state, reducing the cast time of your next 2 Starfires, or Wraths by 40% and increasing their damage by 100%. Woohoo, doesn't really change anything. And the 4 set Star Surge, single target spender, or Starfall, AoE spender, increase your current Eclipse's arcane or nature damage bonus by an additional 2% up to 10%. So as you can see here, they don't do much. I really hope you guys enjoyed this guide. This is my 2nd iteration now of my beginner Boomkin balance guide, and I'm very proud of the outcome. As I said before, please do join my Discord if you have any issues at all. I really love helping you guys out as much as I can. Like I said, we do Mythic Monday events. We're also planning other events, add-ons, UI, whatever the hell you need. I will help you to the best of my abilities. Please do click that subscribe button if you did enjoy it as well, and leave a thumbs up. And you can also let me know your thoughts down below.